In the distant past of the Cosmere, a group of 16 mortals conspired to kill a god. They succeeded, and in an event called the Shattering, they each took a piece of its infinite power for themselves, becoming something new. If you're new to this channel, my name is Jason. I'm a fantasy author, and I love weaving complex mythologies into my own books. This channel, Lore TV, is all about exploring the epic lore that inspires my writing, and today we're pulling back the curtains on those 16 usurpers and the powers that they now hold. We'll explore the Shards of Adonalsium, what they are, what their goals are, and how their ancient war continues to define the entire Cosmere. The Shards of Adonalsium are, for all intents and purposes, the gods of the Cosmere. Each of the 16 shards is a fragment of the original power of creation, and each one is named for a specific ideal that acts as its primary motivation. Think of concepts like preservation, ruin, honor, or odium. These are not just names, they are a driving command, an intent that shapes everything the shard does. The power itself is a substance called investiture, and it permeates all reality, the physical, the cognitive, and the spiritual realms. And this power cannot be destroyed, only changed, and while it's described as functionally infinite, it is not unlimited. When the shards were first created, they were all equals in power, but over millennia that has changed. Some have diminished by investing their power into a world, creating magic systems and life. Others have been wounded or even splintered in conflicts with other shards. These clashes are terrifying events capable of destroying entire planets and leaving scars on the spiritual realm itself. And it was a clash like this that led Honor to a profound realization. He finally understood why Adonalsium at the very end chose not to fight back. The cost was simply too high. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of a shard is its intent. The intent is more than a personality trait, it's more of a fundamental command that twists everything around it. It dictates how its magic works, how it interacts with the world, and most importantly, how it influences the person holding that power. To properly function, a shard needs a vessel, a mortal mind, to wield its immense power. The original 16 vessels were the mortals who participated in the shattering. When a person takes up a shard in an event called an ascension, their mind expands and their body essentially vaporizes. They become something more. The line between the person and the power blurs until it's hard to tell where one ends and the other begins. As Sazed, the holder of Harmony, once wrote, "I am neither ruin nor preservation, they make up me." But this is a dangerous bargain. Over time, the shard's single-minded intent warps the vessel's mind. A good man named Ati, who was once kind and generous, took up the shard of ruin. Over thousands of years, he was twisted into a being who sought only the destruction of all things. Fighting the intent is incredibly difficult and can weaken the vessel, leaving them vulnerable. And it's a slow corruption where the god's mind is reshaped to perfectly match a single isolated ideal, stripped of all nuance. Odium, for example, is pure divine hatred, completely removed from any sense of love or mercy that might temper it. This relationship is a two-way street. The power itself has a rudimentary consciousness, and it can resist or even reject a vessel that acts against its intent for too long. In some extreme cases, a shard has completely abandoned its vessel. So the question becomes, who is really in control? The person holding the power or the power holding the person? And if a vessel dies, the power doesn't just vanish. If another suitable person doesn't take it up, the power becomes wild and dangerous. Left alone for long enough, the raw, driverless investiture will even begin to form its own primitive mind, driven only by its raw intent. And as you'd expect, being a god comes with some serious perks. A vessel can move planets, alter life on a genetic level, and create sentient beings from their own power, like the Spren on Roshar. Their minds expand to think on multiple levels at once, and they can perceive the future not as a single path, but as a tangled web of possibilities. They can manifest physical bodies, appear in multiple places at once, and speak directly into the minds of mortals. But they are not omnipotent. Their power is filtered through their intent. Preservation, for instance, finds it almost impossible to destroy anything. Ruin struggles to create. They are also bound by their promises. When a shard makes a formal oath, for example, it's engraved into its very essence. Breaking that oath can literally create wounds in their power, exposing them to attack from other shards. Rayz, the original vessel of Odium, was a master manipulator, but he was trapped in the Rosharan system for thousands of years by an oath that he swore with honor. He couldn't break it without risking his own destruction. Their senses are also not perfect. While they can feel their presence across the entire Cosmere, they can be distracted, deceived, or surprised. Their future sight can be wrong, and it's possible to hide from their view. In short, they are cosmic forces bound by cosmic rules, and for all their power, they are still vulnerable. They are playing a game with the highest possible stakes where one wrong move can lead to their unmaking. This is the true danger of the shards. They are essentially flawed gods, twisted by their own power, engaged in an internal war that shapes the fate of every living thing in the universe. Now, quick thing before we continue, I'm not trying to sell you anything on this channel, but I do have a free fantasy community over on School, and when you join, you get instant access to 4 of my books, which is a mix of novellas and short stories. No strings attached, no credit card, so if you check it out and my writing's not for you, you maybe have lost like a minute of your day, and you can still participate in the community, or you can stick around and support the channel if you want to. So the link for that is down below. Now back to the gods of the Cosmere. So who are these 16 gods? Over the years, we've learned the names and intents of all of them, though many remain shrouded in mystery. On the world of Sel, home to the stories of Elantris and the Emperor's Soul, there were 2 shards, Devotion and Dominion. Their vessels, Aeona and Sky, respectively, were killed long ago by Odium. Their power didn't vanish, however. It was splintered and forced into the cognitive realm, where it remains as a raw, untamed storm of psychic energy called the Door. This is why the magic on Sel is so dangerous and geographically locked. On Scadrial, the world of Mistborn, we have 2 opposing forces, Preservation and Ruin. Their original vessels were Laras and Ati. Unlike the shards on Sel, these 2 were polar opposites, locked in a conflict between creation and destruction that defined Scadrial's entire history. After a series of cataclysmic events, both shards were taken up by a single vessel, Sazed, forming the hybrid shard known as Harmony. The planet Roshar from the Stormlight Archive is a major hotspot, one influenced by 3 shards. First is Honor, whose vessel was Tanavast. Honor is all about oaths, bonds, and the laws of nature, and his influence shaped the Knights Radiant. Next is Cultivation, whose vessel is a dragon named Coravelium Avast. She is focused on growth and change, sometimes in unpredictable ways. And finally, there was Odium, the Shard of Divine Hatred, whose original vessel, Raze, became the primary antagonist for much of the Cosmere's history. Recently, the shards of Honor and Odium were both taken by Taravangian, creating another hybrid shard called Retribution. Other shards are more solitary. On Nalthis, the world of Warbreaker, we have Endowment, held by the vessel Edgley. This shard is responsible for the divine breaths that grant powers to the returned. On Taldane, from the White Sands graphic novels, resides Autonomy. Its vessel, Bavadin, is a shard of contradictions, encouraging individuality while also exerting control through avatars on other worlds, making it a growing threat. Then we have the fallen Ambition, whose vessel Ulida was killed by Odium, which left the world of Threnody a haunted wasteland. Virtuosity, a shard tied to art and craft, was splintered on Komashi, the world from Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, shrouding the planet in darkness. The remaining shards are still mostly unknown. We have their names and in some cases the names of their vessels. Invention is held by Chan Kosar, Mercy, whose vessel is unknown, Valor, which is held by Medalentorius, pronunciations guys. We have Whimsy, whose vessel is still unknown, and finally Reason, who's held by Euridrius, which has mysteriously vanished and is hiding from the other shards. These 16 powers, plus the 2 new hybrid shards, form the divine pantheon of the Cosmere. But their story began with an act of violence, and that violence has never truly ended. The story of the shards is a story of war. Soon after the shattering, the 16 new gods made a loose agreement not to interfere with each other. It wasn't a formal binding oath, and it didn't last long. Odium, driven by his intent, decided he would become the one and only god of the Cosmere. He began a crusade, hunting down his fellow shards. His first victims were Devotion and Dominion on Sel. He turned them against each other, and when they were weakened from their own fight, he moved in and splintered them both. Next, he went after Ambition. Their clash was so violent it destroyed multiple planets and left a permanent wound on the spiritual realm. Eventually, Odium made his way to Roshar, where Honor and Cultivation stood against him. They managed to bind him to the Rosharan system with a powerful oath, trapping him there for thousands of years. But even trapped, Odium's influence was potent. He eventually wore down Honor's vessel, Tanavast, leading to his death and leaving the Shard of Honor without a mind to guide it for 2 millennia. This cosmic war isn't just about Odium, though he's certainly the most aggressive player. On Scadrial, Preservation sacrificed most of his power to trap Ruin, a selfless act that left him slowly dying for centuries. This ultimately led to the ascension of Sazed, who took up both powers to become Harmony, the first being to hold 2 shards at once. This was a monumental event, proving that shards could be combined. But as we've seen, scene, having opposing intents like ruin and preservation pulling you in different directions makes it difficult to act. And there are hints that harmony might one day become something different like discord. This all leads to the modern era of the Cosmere, where the game has changed once again. With the creation of Retribution on Roshar, a new powerful hybrid shard is on the board, and it's free from the bonds that held Odium. The other shards have taken notice, and the fragile piece is threatening to shatter completely. The ancient war of gods is far from over, and it just might be entering its most dangerous phase. When Brandon Sanderson created this mythology, he made a very conscious choice about the names. He said, "For the Shards of Adonalsium, I have picked things like Odium, Ruin, and Preservation to be the words that are really easy to... they mean something, you understand exactly what they are." He needed the names to be memorable, especially since there are 16 of them. By choosing simple, powerful words that translate well, he made the core conflict of each god instantly understandable. This design philosophy is key to the entire Cosmere. The conflict isn't just about good versus evil, it's about competing ideals. Is it better to preserve something, even if it's stagnant, or to ruin it to make way for something new? Is absolute honor without a shred of pragmatism a virtue or a flaw? Sanderson uses the shards to explore these philosophical questions on a cosmic scale. The mysterious history of the shattering itself is another brilliant piece of world building. We only get fragments of the story, 16 conspirators, some of whom were related or romantically involved, who somehow found a weapon capable of killing a god. Who were they? Why did they do it? And most importantly, where is that weapon now? By leaving these questions unanswered, Sanderson creates a deep, compelling mystery that drives the overarching narrative of the entire Cosmere, promising that the biggest secrets are still yet to be revealed. And as a final reminder, you can explore some of my own world building for free by joining my fantasy community on School. You get 4 of my books just for signing up, and the link is waiting for you down below. And I'll see you in the next video.